Chapter 24. Reunion. Naruto and Konan stood in shock as they gazed upon the resurrected body of the man they formerly knew as Nagato. The look upon their faces was written with confusion and sadness as they stared at the man that they used to know look back upon them with a wide smile. Itachi looked over to Nagato and witnessed a seemingly interesting reunion take place upon them all. "For you, it's been a while since we last met, hasn't it?" Nagato stated as he looked over to his ex-enemy. "For me, it's only been moments, but I can already tell that you look different, Naruto." Naruto smiled confidently at the man. "You've taught me everything that I needed to know about hatred and pain. I have nothing to worry about now." "That's good," Nagato said with a grin as he looked over to his still-alive partner, Konan. "I see that you're wearing leaf attire. I'm assuming Naruto brought you to the Leaf Village like I had hoped." Konan flinched greatly at this sudden news, but smiled in determination. "So, it was true then. You really did plan that far ahead." Nagato nodded simply as he looked at them both. "I knew that Madara would come for you, Konan. I couldn't let him take my teammate from this earth whenever she still had so much left to give." Her face contorted as she looked over to the side. She looked in pain from the sudden revelation. "So, you suddenly came up with this plan, Nagato? You brought Naruto and me together because you thought it would work?" Nagato looked over to his friend in shock, but stood firm as he tried to speak up. "Yes. There was no doubt in my mind that Naruto would need as much help as he could get. It was only better that he could offer you protection and you to him as well, so I wouldn't have to see my friend in the afterlife so early." There was a moment of silence as everyone looked at each other in amazement. Itachi gazed upon the man that he was holding and felt like there was something more to him than he thought before. It seemed Nagato was actually planning things more than he realized. "Thank you," Konan said as she looked at her resurrected teammate. She looked up to him and showed him a gentle smile with tears that welled up in the corners of her eyes. "You were right about Madara aiming for my life. If it wasn't for Naruto-kun, I would have been done for. Your plan did work." Nagato looked at Konan with disbelief before he broke out into a smile of his own. "It seems like you and Naruto have created a strong bond. The last person you ever had an affectionate tone for was myself and Yuhiko, but that was years ago." Konan-chan didn't exactly have it easy, Naruto brought up as he stared down to the ground in remembrance. "She nearly died, and if I wasn't there, then she truly would have. I brought her to Konoha, hoping that she would have it better there, but the people there were mean to her." Naruto continued as he looked up to Nagato with a strong face. "She withstood through it all, and I helped her along the way. I knew that Konan-chan wasn't as bad as everyone thought she was. I knew that somehow I could bring everyone to her side." Konan looked at Naruto in a concerned stare. Her thoughts rambled on the times she was in Konoha and how everyone treated her as nothing more than a slave or someone that couldn't be looked at. The corners of her lips lowered in remorse. "But," Naruto continued as he looked over to Konan again with a grin, "people started to come around. Kakashi-sensei seemed to not mind her at all. Captain Yamato, Guy-sensei, and even Granny Tsunade started to notice that she wasn't all bad." Konan looked over to Naruto and saw his determined happy grin that he was throwing her way, and she could only widen her eyes in astonishment. She never really noticed how many people noticed her. Even though things always seemed like they were never getting better to her, she realized that more and more people really were starting to see her as someone other than an enemy. She saw the look in Naruto's eyes and saw his sincerity towards her. She saw the warmth that shone through and couldn't help but feel captivated by such an honest person. He could do it because he was someone like her. Someone who was once an outcast or a pariah. Things changed, and they changed for the better. She looked at Naruto's current situation and noticed that everyone loves Naruto now. Everyone respects him. Konan looked at her hands and could feel emotion swell in her chest. Maybe she could actually turn around in the village after all? Remembering those few people that actually view her as a comrade and not so much as an enemy gave her exciting feelings. She broke out into a warm smile again as she looked at Naruto. "Naruto-kun." Nagato looked at them both, quite surprised at the interaction that was being played out before him. He looked over to Naruto and saw him blushing and rubbing his head as he looked to Konan, who was giving Naruto the most gentle and caring smile he ever saw her give. "I haven't seen her smile like that since." Nagato smirked as he looked at the both of them. "Naruto, Konan, you've done well this entire time. Unfortunately, you must fight Itachi and me soon. Our master will use us at any moment." "Wait," Naruto shouted as he looked at both of the men. "I have a couple of questions that I need to ask you." "What is it, Naruto?" Naruto looked down to the ground before he looked back up. He lifted his hands up in a shrugging, questioning position. "I'm just wondering. Why did you lie about the Uzumaki genocide and how you're related to me?" Nagato looked confused on the outside. On the inside, he didn't think that Naruto would be able to figure out the information so quickly. He looked to Conan, who didn't give off any information about what Naruto was talking about, but he looked at Naruto and saw the look in his eye about it. He saw the seriousness that was etched onto his features. "What do you mean, Naruto? Can you explain?" Naruto grit his teeth as he spoke. "You know what I mean. I've talked to my mother, and she told me that she doesn't know what the Uzumaki massacre was." Nagato reeled at this unexpected news. Naruto talked to Kushina? Itachi looked just as surprised at the sudden detail as he looked on at this new conversation. He didn't want to interrupt on the fear that they wouldn't have enough time to discuss all of this. This was news to Itachi, and he was curious to how things were playing out currently. Not only that, Naruto spoke up again as he looked at Nagato with arched eyebrows. "Before she disappeared, when I told her that it was you who told me, she said your name. But not in a confused way, but in a way that she knew who I was talking about. My mother sounded like she knew you. What are you hiding from me?" "Nagato, what is Naruto saying?" Conan asked as this information did pique her interest. Just the thought of Nagato knowing who Naruto's mother was new information to her. Nagato never really talked about his family or any friends that he had before he left Uzumaki. She assumed the emotional scar from it all was too jarring for him to speak up about. Even when she would ask him, he would always brush it off or get angry. She would just leave it alone and never really spoke about it with him again. Itachi turned his curiosity toward Nagato and looked into his eyes. He could see some type of emotion dwelling there. He just didn't know what. Nagato closed his eyes and sighed softly. He knew this day would come, but he ultimately didn't think that he would have to bring it up. It was something that he needed to get off of his chest anyway. "Naruto, what I'm about to tell you is the truth. The Uzumaki massacre was not a lie. My family and I were quick to leave the village before the outbreak of the big fight that occurred there." He looked down in sadness as he spoke of everything. "My mother and father left with me as we went to aim to escape the impending destruction. We had no choice. We were very aware of what was going on at the time. Kushina wouldn't remember. Father made it very clear to keep her happy so that she wouldn't be too scared about being separated from us by grandfather." A sharp pang ripped through Naruto's chest as he stared, shocked by the bombshell that was just dropped. Everything went black, and not a sound could be heard as Naruto tried to comprehend what his ex-nemesis just said. He could only raise his hand to point. "Do you? What you're saying is? Do you?" "Yes. It's true. Kushina Uzumaki is my sister." Everyone with the exception of B couldn't help but look aghast as the information sank into everyone's heads. Itachi's eyes widened at this revelation. Hearing this news suddenly answered a lot of questions that he had for Nagato. "So, that's why you assigned me as watch over the 9 tails. Not only for my brother and my knowledge of Konoha, but also for Naruto?" "Yes," Nagato spoke up, "Naruto was a priority. Do not get me wrong. I was still under the impression that Konoha and everyone else was what was wrong with the world, but that was only because of what Konoha did to my family. Once I heard that Kushina had died as well in Konoha after the Kyuubi extraction, I assumed that Konoha was only using Kushina to birth a child and would kill her afterward. My mom didn't birth me for the village." Naruto shouted as she looked at Nagato with intense eyes. His fists clenched as tears welled against his cheeks. He rubbed his cheeks with his sleeve as he looked to Nagato. "My mother wanted to have me. She had a peaceful life in Konoha, and no one bothered her because she had my dad there. It was Madara." Nagato's face paled as he heard Naruto utter something utterly dreadful. "It was Madara that killed my mother. He extracted the Kyuubi from her and left her to die. My father went to protect her and the village at the cost of his own life." Naruto pointed at himself at his chest. "I'm the only testament left of them and their strength." Nagato looked down to the ground as he took in all of this information that was splayed before him. His fist clenched against his side, and he grit his teeth. "That damn Madara. He will pay dearly for all of this. He used my anger and played me like a puppet. I was told that they killed Kushina and was going to use you as a killing machine. I had nothing to live for anymore after that news he gave me." "Nagato," Conan said as she heard everything that was said between them. She never knew any of this. She didn't know Nagato had any family left. She didn't even know that Naruto was this closely related to Nagato. This was news to her just as it was to him. "Don't worry, Nagato," Naruto said as he looked at the man. "My mother died happy. She told me herself." Nagato looked at Naruto and at Conan before he breathed a sigh in defeat. "I was played, but that doesn't mean that the battle is over. Far from it. Naruto," he called out to the boy as they stood across from each other, "I gave you the power of the Rinnegan. I hope it has come in handy during these times." Naruto nodded as he displayed his Rinnegan proudly. "Yes, I have trained with the help of Konan-chan to improve my ability with them. I'm a lot better now than I was when I first started using them, although," Naruto said as he went out of Kyuubi mode, "it changed my hair to an orange color. I still think that it's weird." Nagato looked at Naruto as he showed him his natural hair color, and Nagato was mildly surprised at this. Interesting. Your hair changing color is an unusual side effect of the activation of the Rinnegan. But, from the way I see it, your hair looks more red than orange to me. Conan observed the boy's head. Nagato is right. Your hair does look darker and redder than before. I never noticed until he brought it to our attention. So, Naruto spoke up, my hair is turning into my mom's hair color? Nagato smiled slightly. It would seem so. You're looking more like an Uzumaki every day. Well, I don't really like having red hair color, but I guess that I can get used to it, he said awkwardly as he scratched the back of his head. Naruto, Itachi said as he gained the attention of the boy. I must ask. Itachi couldn't finish his question as he involuntarily began weaving hand seals and spit a large fireball jutsu in Naruto's direction. They barely managed to avoid it as everyone evaded the technique. The battle proceeded until Itachi and Nagato were taking a break, most likely having stopped because the master stopped moving them. Itachi looked over to his partner and noticed that there wasn't much of a difference in his face, although it did seem that something was stirring within him. A stronger emotion that seemed to give Nagato a greater sense of vigor. I can't believe how much Nagato has changed just through these simple interactions. Naruto and Conan looked onwards at their opponents and realized that the current battle was on hold. They were confused, but they kept their guard up anyway. Naruto, I have to ask, Itachi spoke up, what has happened with Sasuke? Naruto looked down as he gathered his thoughts. Sasuke, he isn't the same. He's changed and Madara had something to do with that. Itachi gazed at Naruto thoughtfully. So, Madara showed him the truth. Yeah, Naruto responded sadly. He found out about your plans from the past to prevent the coup. Now, Sasuke wants revenge on Konoha for all of the things that the village forced his brother to do. Nagato, stunned at the revelation, turned to Itachi. A coup? Is this true? Itachi thought quietly. Madara really did know his past and used that to his advantage. He forced Sasuke to rebel against the Leaf Village since it hurt his brother so dearly to him. Madara, you're truly a terrible person. So, I was right to leave my trust in you then for Sasuke's sake? Naruto looked away as the older man eyed him curiously. He needed to know the truth. Naruto couldn't lie to him. Actually, I feel that Sasuke is far too gone in the head. Although, I'm willing to give Sasuke one last chance to change. And, if he doesn't, Naruto looked Itachi in the eye. Naruto's heart and stare piercing through to the man. He could feel the chill wafting throughout his senses. I'll have to kill him. For his peace, and for the peace of the world, Naruto said as he looked down to his feet. His eyes lowered in remorse, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to try. I'll try my best to prevent that from happening. I'm going to work hard to make sure that Sasuke sees the truth, whether he wants to or not. He's my friend after all. Naruto kept going, but his voice lowered, as if he couldn't continue. If Sasuke doesn't change, then, Naruto trailed off, leaving Itachi to ponder on all of these new implications. Itachi felt a pang in his heart from the news of his brother's defection, and also of his brother's hatred for the Leaf Village that Itachi swore to protect. His eyes lowered in sadness, but he knew deep down that Naruto was right. Sasuke may not want to answer to Naruto, and may end up giving his life to a fruitless cause with no answer. Itachi looked to Naruto after a few moments of pondering. Just maybe, Itachi's Mangekyo activated, dripping blood down his cheeks. Everyone else proceeded to get into a fighting stance before Naruto started choking. Naruto-kun! Conan shouted in surprise as the boy kept choking, to reveal a black feathery bird that protruded from his mouth. Its left eye revealed another Mangekyo Sharingan it activated, while staring at Itachi, and for a moment, Itachi felt something loosen within him. His movement left unimpeded, he sighed softly as he started to move again. Wait, Itachi, what are you doing? Naruto asked, surprised, while clearing his throat. His hands were still to his throat as he tried to calm the sore feeling from the sudden release of the raven. What was that? Itachi calmly responded, I gave you this raven, that has a comrade Sharingan eye embedded within his left eye back, when I was still alive. Naruto suddenly remembered as his memory filled him with realization. His eyes widened, but Itachi continued, I left it there with a genjutsu that would alter Sasuke's reasoning and force him to realize the error of his ways and rejoin the Leaf Village. Although, with the current situation and the way this battle is currently going, you may need my help after all. Naruto continued to gaze at the man as Itachi continued, I used the Mangekyo from the bird to cancel the Ito Tensei rules. This allows me to roam freely in this body and give you the help that you need. Itachi turned to Nagato, who looked surprised at the sudden turnaround of the fight. Itachi, you are truly amazing. Not even death can keep you down. Itachi smiled solemnly at the man as he activated his Mangekyo Sharingan once again. For the moment, it seems you are right. I still have some unfinished business here, it seems. Nagato smiled before he felt a sudden strong object pierce through his chest. He looked down, and then back to the object that was piercing him. Sorry, Nagato, Itachi said calmly, this must be done. We have to seal you before you do anything else rash by the master of the Edo Tensei. Nagato still smiled as he looked at the people in front of him. He was reminded of everything. Everything that leads to this point. The sudden change in Naruto, and how the world is currently fighting for their lives. Working together against a common evil enemy. Something he never thought he could do, but yet Naruto was currently achieving this possibility. Thank you, Itachi. I wouldn't want to make anyone's life any harder than it already is. I've learned my lesson back when I was alive. Nagato chuckled as his sight fell to Naruto. Naruto, you're doing a good job. Thank you for showing me the answer back then. I was just so stubborn. To think my nephew would really be this amazing. I'll have to thank Kushina once I get to the other side. He looked over to Konan, who seemed to be looking at him in sadness. Her eyes were watering while she saw him. She couldn't hold it. All of this time, he had been gone, and now he's leaving again. She's still just as cute as when we first met. Konan, it's all right. I already had my time on Earth. I'm happier now, especially now that I know that you have Naruto. She started to lightly sob as she smiled. Yes, I have Naruto now. Everything is fine. Thank you, Nagato. Without you, I don't know if I would have ever made it. Nagato smiled at his old teammate. Anything for you. You were there for me when no one else was. I saw that when it was too late. But now, everything is fine. You and Naruto, you both have something. It grew into something unbreakable. Nagato's skin started to chip away each second, but the smile on his face never left. Things may get even harder as time goes on, but promise me that you both will follow your heart. Be strong, Konan. Please continue to look after Naruto. You two are the only family that I have left. Konan wiped away her tears with her fingers as she smiled at the tattered man on the ground. I will, Nagato. Nagato looked over to Naruto, who had a solemn look on his face. Nagato still smiled nonetheless. Naruto's eyes darted to the man, but the look on his face didn't change. You are the light to this world. I was merely a tool to get you there. A dud. A flop. But you are the real hero of this story. I know we didn't have much time to bond with each other, but the time that we had was irreplaceable. I'm glad that you're my nephew. Naruto's eyes started to water as well as he tried his best to hold in his tears, but was failing to do so. Thanks, Uncle Nagato. Nagato only smiled even brighter as his time faded before his eyes. Thanks for protecting Konan. Naruto grinned in a half effort to keep from choking up again from the tears. I'll keep doing it too. Naruto's last statement fell on deaf ears as Nagato faded entirely and was sealed within gourd held by Itachi Susanoo. Naruto and Konan stood in thought as everything was finished. Nagato left them with a lasting impression. All of their questions seemed to be answered from this interaction. No one knew what to say. The only thing that remained was Naruto's will as he held himself back up on his feet and stood proudly. Newfound determination emanating from his person. Come on, Konan-chan. We have things we need to do. Konan looked at the ground before she looked back up to Naruto. She saw the look in his eyes, and her worries and fears vanished again as she saw his warm smile that enraptured her. Nagato, thank you for your words. I believe I can move on from your death now. She smiled at Naruto as she nodded her head. Her eyes didn't betray her emotions. The uncertainty of the outcome that encapsulated her mind was suddenly ended. Maybe there was something that was moving them along. Maybe there was a higher being that made all of this possible. It led her here, at this place, at this moment. What could she say? She didn't know the future, but she knew that Naruto would succeed. That was all that she needed.
End of chapter 24.